In 1966, a father in Dayton, Ohio, never once had his house broken into, and he never owned an alarm. In his whole neighborhood, there was no such thing. What he had instead was a set of habits so ordinary that no one thought of them as defense at all. His porch light burned every night. His hedges were cut low under the windows. He knew the name of every family on the block and their cars by sight. A stranger up his path was seen from 3 houses before he reached the door and felt it. In 30 years on that street, the break-ins happened to the houses that looked empty. His never once looked empty. The one habit that did the most, that quietly told every stranger the house was watched, is number 2 on this list. And the one thing that Father understood that the $5,000 alarm salesman will never tell you, the thing every one of these tricks is really about, is number 1. He was not a rare man. In 1966, this was simply how a father kept his family safe, with attention and daylight and neighbors, not a keypad by the door. He understood something we have paid a great deal of money to forget. An alarm does nothing until a stranger is already inside your house, standing in your living room in the dark. Everything that Father did aimed at a better goal. He made sure that stranger looked at his house and decided, before he set foot on the lawn, to go elsewhere. We traded that understanding away. We were sold a box on the wall that screams after the glass is already broken. We forgot the older, deeper defense that means the glass never breaks at all. That knowledge did not die because it stopped working. It works better than any alarm, and the people who study crime will tell you so. It died because there is no $5,000 bill in a trimmed hedge and a porch light. Number 14 makes a burglar cross your house off his list before he slows the car down, and it costs about $10. Number 2 is the habit that did more to protect that family than any lock ever made. And number 1 is not a device or a trick at all. It is the single truth about home defense that makes the whole expensive industry look foolish. And once you understand it, every other thing here makes sense. These 20 tricks were never about gadgets. They were the mark of a father who understood that the safest fight is the one that never happens. He set his home up so it never did. Not an alarm, a deterrent. Every one of these, that Dayton father set up with his own 2 hands for almost nothing. Before we count them down, one honest word. None of this is about confronting anyone or setting a trap. A trap is illegal, and it gets your own family hurt. This is about the older, smarter thing, making the criminal choose another house. If that kind of quiet wisdom is worth remembering, subscribe and stay to the end, because the last one is the one that matters most. Let us count down the 20 lost home defense tricks every father set up in the 1960s that make $5,000 alarms look useless. Number 20. The porch light that never went dark. A house goes dark at the front after 9, and to a man watching the street, dark means nobody is paying attention. The oldest trick is the simplest. A light left burning at every door all night. You leave the front and back porch lights on from dusk to dawn, and you keep the bulbs fresh. A stranger at your door then stands lit up for the whole street to see. A lit doorway forces a man into the light, and men who mean harm hate the light. For the family asleep upstairs, that steady glow was a wall no darkness could hide an intruder behind. Police still tell you the same thing today, that good lighting is among the cheapest and best deterrents there is. The Dayton father changed those bulbs the day they burned out with his own hands, and never let a doorway go dark. Not a light bill you resent. A light a stranger cannot stand in. Number 19, trimming the hedges below the windowsill. Tall shrubs grow up under the front windows, thick and pretty, and every one is a place for a man to stand hidden while he works a window open. The father kept every bush below the sill. You cut the shrubs so nothing near a window is tall enough to hide a crouching man, and keep the sightlines from the street open. A burglar needs cover, and low hedges take his cover away. For the family, an open yard meant no one could work at a window without standing in plain view of the street. Every crime prevention officer in the country still walks a yard looking for exactly this. Not a hedge you hide behind, a yard with nowhere to hide. Number 18, the dog, or the sign in the bowl. A dog barks before a stranger is halfway up the drive, and to a burglar, a barking dog is the most reliable sign that this house is more trouble than the next. The father had a dog, and the dog did more than any lock. If you cannot keep a dog, a large water bowl on the back step and a worn leash by the door tell the same story. Convicted burglars, asked directly, name a dog as a top reason they skip a house. For the family, the dog was an alarm that went off before the break-in, not after, and could not be cut or unplugged. Not an alarm that reacts, a warning that comes before.
Before we go on, I made something special for you. A guide for men like us who still believe a man should be able to fix his own home. It's the forgotten handyman secrets, the old-fashioned repair tricks our grandfathers used to fix anything around the house and keep it running for life. But these skills are disappearing fast, and once they're gone for good. Don't pay a repairman ever again. Scan the QR code on screen or click the link below. Go ahead, I'll wait right here.
Number 17, knowing the neighbors and their cars. A father who knew every family and every car on the block could spot a strange car idling too long in a second. This was the real neighborhood watch, before it had a name. You learn who belongs and what they drive. Then anything that does not belong stands out to a dozen sets of eyes at once. A burglar counts on being anonymous, and a block full of people who know each other takes his anonymity away. For the family, being known on their street meant 100 eyes watched their house when they could not. The Dayton father waved at every porch on his block, and every porch waved back. Studies of neighborhood watch still show it cuts burglary meaningfully, for no money at all. Not a camera that records. Neighbors who notice. Number 16, the upstairs light and radio on a timer before timers. When the family went out, the house did not go dark and silent, because a dark house at 7 in the evening tells a watcher that no one is home. The father left a light on upstairs and a radio playing. You leave a light and a voice going when you are out, so the house reads as occupied to anyone watching. A burglar wants an empty house above all else, and the sound of a radio says the house is not empty. For the family out at dinner, that murmur of a radio through the window was a lie that kept the house safe. Not a house that looks empty, a house that always seems awake. Number 15, locking the door every single time. The plainest truth in this whole subject, and the one people still ignore, is that the most common way in is an unlocked door. The father locked every door and window every time, even to walk to the mailbox, and taught his children the same. You lock up as a habit, so automatic you cannot remember doing it because you always did. A third of break-ins are simply a man trying the front door and finding it open. For the family, a locked door was the free wall that stopped the lazy burglar cold, and most are exactly that. Not a lock you sometimes use, a habit you never break. Stop the count for a moment, because there is a fact at the center of all of this that the alarm industry would rather you never sat with. In 2013, the University of North Carolina ran the largest survey of convicted burglars ever done in this country, more than 400 of them. They asked them how they chose a house. The answer was consistent and clear. They checked first whether anyone was home and whether the house looked watched, and if it did, most simply moved on to an easier target. Around 60% said they would leave and find another house the moment they saw signs of security or occupancy. Here is the part that matters. Most break-ins happen in the daytime, between 10 and 3, when the house is empty and the family is at work and school. And here is the number that tells the whole story of what we lost. In 1961, only about 16% of burglaries happened in the daytime. By the 1990s, it was 40% and climbing, because homes emptied out during the day as the old world changed. The 1960s father's house was rarely empty, and that, more than any lock, was the defense. The alarm on your wall does nothing until the stranger is already inside. Every trick on this list works before he ever chooses your door. That is the difference, and it is worth more than $5,000. Number 14, the sign that says the house is watched. A small sign at the front, a beware of dog sign, or a this house is watched sign makes a burglar hesitate, and hesitation sends him next door. The father put up a simple sign, and it worked far beyond its cost. You post a sign that tells a stranger this house is not the easy one, behind it or not. Burglars surveyed admit a sign alone makes many move on because they want the path of least resistance. For the family, a $10 sign bought a piece of the same Deterrence a $5,000 system sells, not a system you finance. A sign a burglar reads and skips. Number 13. Solid core doors and a real deadbolt. A hollow door and a flimsy latch are a burglar's easiest entry, kicked in a second. A solid door and a deep deadbolt turn that second into a minute of loud, visible work no burglar wants. The father hung solid core doors and set real deadbolts. You put a heavy door and a proper deadbolt on every entrance, with long screws deep into the framing, not just the jamb. A burglar wants in fast and quiet, and a solid door with a real bolt gives him neither. For the family, the door that took a minute and a crowbar and a lot of noise to breach was a door most burglars would not even try. Not a door kicked in a second. A door that fights back with time. Number 12. Reinforcing the strike plate and the frame. Most doors do not fail at the lock. They fail at the frame, where the strike plate is held by two short screws into soft pine that split at the first kick. The father fixed the weak point everyone forgets. You replace the short strike plate screws with 3-inch screws that reach past the jamb into the wall stud. You add a reinforced strike plate, so the whole frame must break, not just 2 screws. A deadbolt is only as strong as the wood it goes into. For the family, $3 screws, driven by his own hands, turned a door that popped at a kick into one that held against a shoulder, not a lock that looks strong. A frame that actually is. Number 11. Making the windows harder than the next house. A ground floor window is the second most common way in, and an unlocked one is an open invitation. A pinned or reinforced window sends the burglar looking elsewhere. The father secured the easy windows. You lock every window, and on the vulnerable ones, add a pin or dowel in the track so it cannot be forced open. A burglar at a window that will not give up quietly does not stand there fighting it in the daylight. For the family, a dowel cut and laid in the track by his own hands cost nothing and closed the second easiest door into the house. Not a window a man slides open. A window that will not budge. Number 10. keeping the garage and its door closed and locked. An open garage is a display case of a family's tools and its schedule, and the door from the garage into the house is very often the weakest of all. The father kept the garage down and the inner door locked. You keep the overhead door closed whenever you are not standing in it and put a real lock on the door into the house. A burglar loves a garage for the cover and the tools it hands him. For the family, a closed garage hid what they owned and when they came and went, and a locked inner door stopped the easiest breach in the house. Not a garage left open. A door a burglar counts on, closed. Here is the part of his story we have skipped. The Dayton father did not always understand any of this. He learned it in 1958, in his first house on a rougher street, the hard way. He came home from work one evening to a jimmied back door and a ransacked bedroom. His wife's few pieces of jewelry were gone. The small amount of cash they had been saving was gone, and a feeling settled in the house that took his family a year to shake. He had thought a locked door was enough. A neighbor, an older man who had lived through more, came over and walked the property with him. He came not to scold, but to teach. He pointed at the overgrown bushes the burglar had hidden in. He pointed at the dark back porch with the dead bulb, and the door no one on the street could see. He said the only thing about protecting a home that the young father never forgot. You cannot stop a man who wants in bad enough, son, but you can make sure he picks the other house. That is the whole game. And that idea, the plainest and most important thing on this entire list, is number 1. Number 9, never advertising when the house was empty. A family that told the whole town it was leaving for 2 weeks handed a burglar a schedule. The father was careful, always, about who knew the house would be empty. You keep your travel quiet, tell only people you trust, and never leave a note on the door. An empty house is a target, and an empty house everyone knows about is a certainty. For the family, keeping their absences private meant no one was ever waiting for them to leave. Today, the same mistake is made online, telling the whole world the house is empty in real time. Not an absence you broadcast, an absence you keep to yourself. Number 8, making the house look lived in while away. When the family did go away, the father made the house perform the daily signs of life, so that from the street nothing changed. You have a neighbor take in the mail, park a car in the drive, and keep the lawn cut so nothing accumulates and nothing signals an empty house. A burglar reads a pile of newspapers and an overflowing mailbox like a sign that says, "Come in." For the family, a neighbor's small kindnesses made a 2-week absence invisible. Not a house that stacks up mail, a house that never looks left. Number 7, the gravel path and the noisy approach. A father could not watch every corner of his yard, so he made the ground itself announce a visitor, with gravel underfoot that no one could cross in silence. You lay gravel on the paths and under the windows, so anyone approaching at night makes noise with every step. A burglar wants a silent approach, and gravel takes his silence from him. For the family, the crunch of gravel under a footstep at night was a warning bell that needed no wiring and no battery. Not a silent approach. Ground that speaks when it is stepped on. Number 6, valuables out of sight and a decoy for the obvious. A burglar in a hurry grabs what he sees, so the father kept anything worth taking out of sight, and the real valuables where no thief would think to look. You keep cash, jewelry, and guns out of the bedroom nightstand, which is the first place every burglar goes. You store them somewhere ordinary and unremarkable instead. A burglar has minutes, and he spends them on the obvious places. For the family, Valuables hidden in the plain and boring corners of the house survived, while the obvious spots held nothing worth taking. Not treasure in the nightstand, nothing where a thief looks first. Number 5. Engraving and recording what you owned. The father marked his valuable tools with his own name or a number and kept a written list, so anything stolen was hard to sell and easy to trace. You engrave your license number on your tools and electronics and keep a written inventory with the serial numbers. Marked property is a burden to a thief, hard to fence and dangerous to hold. For the family, belongings the father engraved with his own hands were both a deterrent, because a marked item is worth less to steal, and a way to get things back if the worst happened. Not property that vanishes clean, property with your name cut into it. Number 4. The routine that never looked like a routine. A burglar often watches a house for days to learn when it empties, so the father varied the family's patterns, never leaving and returning at the same minute every day. You vary your comings and goings enough that no watcher can set his clock by you, and you notice any car that lingers too long. A burglar depends on a predictable empty window, and a family with no fixed pattern never quite gives him one. For the family, a little unpredictability meant no one could ever be sure the house was safely empty. Not a schedule a watcher can learn. A rhythm that keeps him guessing. Number 3. Teaching the whole family the plan. A house is only as secure as its least careful person, so the father taught his wife and every child the same habits: the locked doors, the lights, the stranger you do not open for. You make sure everyone in the house knows to lock up and to leave the lights as they are. No one opens the door to a stranger or tells a caller that they are home alone. A burglar's favorite knock is answered by a child who says the parents are out. For the family, everyone knowing the plan meant there was no weak link, no open door, no careless word to a stranger on the step. Not a house one careless person opens. A family that all knows the same rules. Number 2. Being the house that is obviously watched. This is the trick from the top of our story, the one that did more than any lock the father ever bought. Everything came together into a single impression a stranger felt the moment he looked at the house. This home was awake, cared for, and watched, and he would be seen the instant he stepped onto the lawn. The cut hedges, the burning light, the known neighbors, the dog, the open sight lines. All of it said one thing to a man deciding which house to rob. Not this one. You make your house by a dozen small signs, unmistakably the one paying attention, so the burglar's own eyes tell him to move along. A burglar chooses the house that looks asleep, and this father made sure his never did. For the family, being the watched house on the block was worth more than any alarm, because the alarm reacts and the watch prevents. Not a house that catches him inside, a house he never chooses at all. Number 1. Understanding that the best defense is the one that ends the choice before it starts. And it is the thing this whole list has been circling since the first minute. Before the lights and the locks and the hedges, the Dayton father understood one truth, that the $5,000 alarm is built to make you forget. The goal is not to fight the intruder. The goal is to never be chosen. An alarm is a machine that reacts after a stranger is already in your home in the dark, which is the worst outcome, the one where your family is in the house with him. Everything on this list works earlier than that. It works out at the curb, in the burglar's own head, in the 2 seconds where he looks at your house and your neighbors and decides which one is the easier night. Make yours the harder one by every cheap sign of a home that is awake and watched, and he chooses the other house, and the fight you feared simply never happens. That is what the studies of real burglars prove, that 60% of them move on the moment a house looks watched. He did not learn that from a salesman. He learned it in 1958, standing in a ransacked bedroom from an older neighbor who walked his yard and said, "You cannot stop a man who wants in bad enough, but you can make sure he picks the other house." Here is the part worth sitting with. Every expensive system is sold on fear, on the moment the glass breaks and the siren wails and you are already in danger. This older wisdom is built on the opposite, on making that moment never come. And almost every piece of it is free, or nearly so. A light, a trimmed bush, a locked door, a known neighbor, a dog, a habit. The alarm makes money when you are afraid. The Father's way makes you safe by making you unremarkable, not worth the trouble. Not the most expensive defense on this list, the plainest, and the only one that wins the fight by making sure it never starts. None of it needed a keypad on the wall. That was the point, and it is the thing the salesman with the $5,000 quote will never say. A father who understood that the whole game is being passed over, not catching someone in the act, owed nothing to the industry of fear. He cut the hedges low and left the light burning. He knew his neighbors and they knew him, and a stranger was seen before he was 10 steps in. He locked the door every time and taught his children to do the same, and he made his home by a dozen small and nearly free signs, the one a burglar looked at and quietly decided to skip. That knowledge was never taken from us because it failed. It works better than the box on the wall, and the people who study crime for a living will tell you so. It was buried because there is nothing to sell in it. No monthly fee in a trimmed hedge, no contract in a porch light, no $5,000 in a father who taught his kids to lock the door. We did not lose our safety. It is still there, in the light and the lock, and the neighbor and the dog, cheaper and better than it has ever been sold to us. What we lost was the plain old understanding of what actually keeps a family safe, and an older neighbor said it best, standing in a young man's ransacked house. You cannot stop a man who wants in bad enough, but you can make sure he picks the other house.